I'm John Torre. I'm the director of CTF at Hackers Teaching Hackers. And for this year, 2021 CTF, I wanted to go through some solve videos and kind of show you how the intended solution was kind of meant to be done. What we're going to be doing is taking a look at some of the statistics for the CTF, just to give you a little bit of behind the scenes, and then we'll solve the first challenge. So first of all, we had, I think at the time, about 90 users that were registered for the CTF. Since then, we reopened the CTF so people can solve problems throughout the rest of the month. We had about 1,500 total points, or close to 1,600 with 44 challenges, which is a lot, but we have challenges that work inside of our villages. So as you're doing villages, you can solve CTF challenges or get challenge flags as a part of the experience with villages. This isn't necessarily correct. We actually had some that weren't solved and some others that did only have just one solve as well. Here is the distribution of scores. So there were 17 people that had 0 to 36 points, and only one person that had above 648. So typically, we probably want to see this more like a bell curve. So our bell curve is shifted down a little bit. It's very kind of small here with a larger distribution in the middle. This is kind of an indication that this was a decently hard CTF. So we'll take that into account next year when we develop challenges for next year. Here's all the actual challenges in percent per score, so we can see the ones that were easier to solve or ones that a lot of people were able to get through. There's a category breakdown here, and then we have the solves versus fails. So typically when you're playing a CTF, it's perfectly fine if you think you have a solution or to kind of just throw out an oddball guess, because most CTFs, including ours, won't penalize you for guessing wrong. That being said, we watch these, so if you're fuzzing it or just kind of throwing things at that, we'll just ban you, right? So there's just a situation where you don't want to throw tons and tons of guesses, but at the same time, you're totally free to throw them. This is very typical of a CTF that I've run and see about this many solves to fail ratio. So that's not bad at all. What we could do is take a look at some of the correct submissions and see that these are all correct, right? So these are people actually throwing the right flags that we intended at the system. And we can start looking for sort of anomalies. Some anomalies might be how fast people are throwing them, which is fine. Myth here was the developer of the blue team village. So he was kind of playing and just testing out the flags. And right here, what we see is on the scripture problem, lots of people hitting the flag very closely together. But that turned out to be okay because this is a community challenge. This year we had something called community challenges. Even though this was a solo event, we still allowed people to work together and try to learn from each other and solve problems together. And a community challenge is a great example of that. And seeing this actually makes us very happy because this is exactly what we wanted people to be doing. Regardless of whether or not these people came to the CTF together or met up and started working on the challenge themselves, this is indication of what we'd hope to see. People working together on those challenges and trying to get them solved and getting points for those things. Same thing with something like this. It's very possible that these two people just worked together and kind of chatted it out and went through. And that's pretty much it. When we go take a look at the incorrect submissions, what we're looking for are things like this was very close. So whoever this was on the was getting there. I think this one, we didn't need the 0x in front of it. So that's something that we should have probably thrown a hint out. And I think they were kind of confused on which particular problem that would have related to. So this is a little interesting here. Other things that we see on the bottom, if we start seeing that people are getting very close, but they're not all the way there, we might throw out a hint or do something to go and double check the challenge to make sure that there's nothing wrong here. But I think all of this is very standard for what we typically see, and everything looks pretty good here. All right, so let's go to the actual CTF and we'll take a look at the first challenge. First one is into the Nexxus. Gives you story information. There were 44 solves, so this was solved pretty widely. Let's go to a directory here to set this up, and we'll take a look. So this year, like I said, we had kind of a story mode, and in that story mode, we were trying to convey this sense of a bunch of people working together in sort of like a hacktivist organization where you're hacking against these large mega corporations that want to end basically personal privacy for profit. And in this one, we kind of put out this sort of like 2600 like zine with the, a whole bunch of stuff that's kind of like the Hacker Manifesto, this whole idea that we're watching back. And if you look closely here, you have some of the letters that are standing out, and we can start picking those out. So this one is very easy to go down rabbit holes and do like a red herring type thing. But if we take a look at the index, we have H. There's a kind of bolded T here, and then we have an H. Right? And then the next one should be this curly brace and this curly brace. Most of the time we'll always have actually pretty much always have our flag formats like this with something in between. Certain challenges don't lend themselves well to that, especially if you're like cracking hashes and we only want a certain character set. We don't want to have your special characters or things like that. We either tell you that's part of the hash, or we'll tell you to wrap your solution in this flag format so that people sort of know what they're looking for. So we have this. The next one is D. This one is E. This one is A. This is a capital T. Most of our challenges are not case sensitive. We'll actually allow you to do whatever. For things like this, we make them case sensitive, so we know you're actually looking at the right thing and not just sharing flags or something. And the last one is that. So if we take this, go back here, type in our flag and submit it, it tells us it was correct. So those are the points there. Some other challenges I can see is if you missed this, going and reading everything line by line, which is cool. I hope that you actually read it and had fun with the whole story behind the CTF. Things like CTLA, the only reason we added that and tried to make up something called, like, I think it was the Cyber Terrorist Liberation Act, was if you go down here and you saw this and you thought, well, Control A, and I select it, this is here. And if I click on that, it'll just bring us a Rickroll. So actually what we intended to do was to have that Rickroll be something else and bring us to a totally different thing that would kind of help us in the challenge and all of this, but we kind of dumbed it down a little bit after a while. Some other things, I think people will get into a forensics mode where they're trying to reverse engineer the file format, trying to decompress streams inside of the PDF. All that's really good, looking for strings and things. But the fact that this is only 10 points and most of the problems are 25, 75, they go up to 100. 10 points is probably a little bit too much for something like that. So this is the very first CTF challenge, and we'll be adding more videos for other challenges. Thanks.